Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Kingfisher Knits podcast. My name is Madeleine and this is a podcast about my adventures in knitting. I will put in the video description box below the links of everywhere you can find me because I am Madeleine Windsor on Ravelry, but I'm Kingfisher Knits on Instagram, and I also have the Kingfisher Knits group on Ravelry, which serves as a group for my knitting designs and also for this podcast. I'm talking to you from Zurich in Switzerland, where I live with my husband and my two small children, but I'm originally from England in the UK. So I'm going to try and jump straight into business today, and hopefully everything will work well again with putting the show notes down below in the description box. By show notes, if you're not familiar, what I mean is I try to give a link or information about each of the things I talk about here, be that a link to my project page on Ravelry or the yarn that I'm talking about, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start with whips like I did last time, and I'm going to try and keep putting some admin type things more towards the end unless they're very pressing, and then I'll continue to put them at the beginning. So whips. I am not going to show you my DK weight brioche, two-colour brioche project that I'm knitting at the moment as a design with the trailers yarn, which I showed last week. I am making really good progress on it, but anyway, I'm not going to show that until it's done, and at the moment it's not done. Okay, what I am going to show is progress on a whip that I showed you last week. I am working on the Recoleta cardigan. I think that's how it should be pronounced. Obviously, Joji Locatelli speaks Spanish. She's from Argentina. Of course, it's been in the project bag. This is the Recoleta cardigan from Joji Locatelli. It's a beautiful, beautiful cardigan. Worked in worsted weight yarn with this lace panels. They continue all over the entirety of the collar, and they also cover the whole of the back. I have not made a huge amount of progress on this because I have been making good progress all around, I would say, on my projects at the moment. And this is where I am right now. So it's not a great deal, but it is, lace, cabled work. Hopefully you can see. Obviously it's not blocked. I had considered trying to steam block it to show off the pattern better, but I figured for now that's how it looks. And what happened was you start I started here. I've knit this part, left these stitches on hold, picked up this, which was a provisional cast on. That was fun. I knew it wasn't going to be super simple. Picking up a provisional cast on, I have done it once. I think I said last time around I'd never done a provisional cast on, and I forgot. I have done a provisional cast on in the past. But this time is picking up a provisional cast on where from that cast on edge you've immediately started working in lace. So it was a little tricky, but I'm happy with the job that I did, and then I've continued, so now basically knitting what was knit down here, up here. And when I've knit them to the same length, this is actually, I'll try and show you, the back of the collar, so the back of the neck. You can sort of see like that. So then the construction of the whole top part will start. I have cast this on hoping to take part in a couple of garment KALs, and especially the Joji fall KAL. For it to work for that one, I will have to finish it by the end of November. I don't know how likely that is, but I don't care. I wanted to knit it anyway. I've had the yarn for it for a while. And the yarn I'm using, I showed, I think, last time, is the Traveller Aran base from the Plucky Knitter, which is a 65-20-15 superwash merino silk yak. And I discovered, just when I think looking this up to link in my last podcast episode, that this yarn is actually discontinued now. I'm sure there's a lot of it around on D-Stash and the like, because that seems to be the case with Plucky people. I'm not saying this for all the time, but people, Plucky do the way that they do their updates, people tend to buy a whole bunch because they have very reasonable shipping, at least within the US. and then sometimes they, you know, destash or swap out some of those skeins that they've bought. Anyway, this is the Wanderlust colourway, so of course they still have this colourway probably on other bases, but this is a really, really beautiful base. I already knit a hat for myself in the sport weight version of this base, and it's really beautiful. So that's all I'm going to say for now about this particular whip. And I've got more into, it's not really a lace pattern, which I would say you can totally, you're going to learn the chart and be able to just not look at the chart and read your knitting. But there is a certain amount of it, which I'm sort of getting into now. So I'm knitting that on 4.5mm needles. At the moment I'm using my Knit Pro Symphonies, these nice ones. And I did mention last time round that I was a bit apprehensive about sizing, because I would want to do the small size based on how the sizing information is given and the advice on how much ease and what have you. And I have a slightly smaller gauge, which made me think, well, maybe I should just knit the medium and then everything will work out. I've decided to stick with the small, because probably because something I'm going to tell you about an FO later might explain as to why that is. Anyway, another whip that I wanted to show you is the whip which I forgot to show you last time. I mean, I knew I was meant to show it to you, but I'd left it in the wrong place. And this is actually something which is crochet. So I'm crocheting. My friend who got this Molly Makes magazine for her sewing and crafting projects, it had a crochet sort of pull-out extra magazine came with one of her issues, and she doesn't crochet and she knows that I can, and so she gave it to me wondering if it would be useful or of interest, and I am making this little unicorn here. Not so little unicorn, but this unicorn. So this is meant to be made out of DMC crochet cotton. I don't have almost any cotton at the moment in my stash, and I certainly didn't have that one. And I nearly went out and got something, or thought I could make do with some wool. And I remembered I had a couple of skeins of acrylic yarn that I didn't really know what I was going to be doing with. It's not something I tend to knit with, nothing against it for certain cases, but this also isn't a fantastic acrylic. Maybe I'm wrong. I have not knit with much acrylic. I hear people saying that some acrylics, I think particularly Brava from Knit Picks is a really good one. I don't know how this compares. I know how this compares to Red Heart acrylic, which I've knit with once, which was really horrible, and this isn't that bad. Anyway, this is from Stitch Studio by Nicole, Storybook. This one is Fanfare, which I think is the multicoloured ones, and I also had one which was a solid colour, and this is called Lullaby. This colour here, which is the colour I've been mostly using for my unicorn, is Petit Four, is the colour there. It's 100% acrylic, and I think it's meant to be a DK weight. Instead, this solid colour, which I've just been using for a couple of bits, this is called Florina. You can see down there. So I have plenty of this yarn. I'm not going to finish it all up, especially not the contrast, but I've been making the unicorn. So I obviously am missing a head. So the way this works is that you start right up here with the neck. I made the body, then you make each leg, and then I made this panel to close up across the belly. I experimented with a couple of ways of seaming this. I don't think I've ever really seamed anything in crochet. I've made a couple of sort of amigurumi things, but the kind where you just pull the yarn through the top of a few stitches and it's done. This one I first tried seaming in one way, which has left kind of a visible seam, and then, which I don't really mind, it's underneath anyway, and then for this other part up here I tried to do something a bit more like a mattress, what I would consider a mattress stitch. Sorry, it's in there, and I think that looks better. It's not so visible, the line of where that was. Of course, doing it with this yarn probably also helps. Anyway, so I was doing this on a 3mm crochet hook. I have no idea what that is in anything else. I've bought all my crochet hooks here in Europe, and here they just use the millimeters, so I can't tell you what letter that would be. But it was a lot of fun. At the beginning it wasn't so much fun. I think I haven't crocheted for a while, and I've never really crocheted with acrylic. So I think my tension was really tight, and it was squeaking when I was trying to put the crochet hook in. So I wasn't enjoying it at the beginning, but I was like, keep going, it'll work out. And I have a nice unicorn body and legs. So I now have to do the head, and then I have to make the little horn and the mane and the tail. And I think just use up some, once I've done the head, I've got some sparkly multicolored yarn that I was thinking I would use for the horn, and to make the mane and the tail, I would use up maybe some scraps, maybe holding fingering weight double or something. It doesn't matter too much here, obviously just wants to look nice. It's meant to be, you know, in this case they've done a sort of multicolored rainbowy, not really a rainbow, but you know, nice multicolored yarns to use for the mane and the tail. And this will be for my daughter. My daughter is 6 and she's very much looking forward to having it. I honestly think I would have probably not finished all the finishing details, but I would have had the head done, but I can't find my crochet hook. This is a project I've been doing when I've been sort of sitting around with the kids, sometimes in their room or on the sofa. Probably it's fallen down the back of the sofa. I was looking in all the correct places, like with the project, with my crochet hooks and what have you, but I know I didn't put it away, so it probably just slid down the back somewhere. So I need to find that, because I don't have another 3mm crochet hook. So I need to do that so I can get this little unicorn finished. And my daughter has already named her dandelion, despite the fact she has no head. My son, who's not 3 yet, keeps coming up to me saying, no face, no face. So I do really want to get that done, and really need to find that darn crochet hook. Anyway, that was fun, and I didn't actually say the name of the designer, which I would like to say. So let me just double check. She's called Ilaria. Yeah, Ilaria Caliri. It's an Italian name. I will link her down below. She seems to do a lot of amigurumi, but I know that she's based in London. So that's another whip. I think that that's going to be it for whips this week. As I said, I was also working on my DK brioche shawl, and I tried to keep working on my bonbon mitts from another Hoki Locatelli pattern. I took them out with me, opened up the bag, and I had the knitting cable but no knitting needles on the cable, so I obviously couldn't do anything about that. And the reason for that is that I had taken those needles, those are tips from my Higher Sharps set, so that I could finish off another object. So I think we can move into finished objects, and the first one I am wearing. So I have finished my not so faded sweater. I will stand up to show you it in its full glory. So this is, for those of you who don't know or haven't watched anything of mine so far, this is the So Faded sweater from Andrea Mowry. It is a top-down raglan, so you start up here, and here you can see the raglan lines. It has this garter stitch part across the sleeve stitches at the top, and then when you get down here and you join in the round, it's just straight down stockinette in the round. Some ribbing at the bottom, and then you come back, you finish your sleeves, and then you finally pick up for the neckband with just a little bit of ribbing here. This is meant to be worked in you pick out different skeins of fingering weight yarn, and you, especially speckled I would say, and you fade one into the other throughout. I did not do that, that's why I call it my not so faded sweater. I had a couple of issues with it, which I told you about last time. It's not to do with the pattern. I chose to knit the 34 size, which would have had a finished bust measurement of 34, giving me a tiny bit of negative ease. My gauge loosened up massively from just from here to here. Don't know what was going on there. I've ended up with, I think it's a 30, so I measured it, and it's meant to be like a 36.5 inch bust, but it seems to be even bigger around. But I've measured my gauge, I've measured it, I don't know. Anyway, so what I've ended up with is, anyway, it's a classic sweater, it doesn't have waist shaping. I've ended up with something with quite a bit more ease. I really, really love the finished fabric. I love the look of the finished item. I like my sleeves, which are, right now I've got nothing underneath them. So there's a little bit of give in there, but that's good. So if I put it on top of something else, there is more ease than I expected or was really looking for around the bust area. However, I've always looked at some of these more positive ease sweater designs. Of course, the extreme one would be the boxy. I kind of knew boxy is not, my jam. That's not something that I would particularly select and knit for myself, or certainly not a garment that would look like that. I wouldn't choose to buy that in a shop. And I think by knitting this, I've kind of ended up with my boxy sweater. So like, this is something that I am comfortable with. This is an amount of ease which I feel fine in, and so now I can go ahead and hopefully knit something maybe a bit more fitted in a similar, fingering weight sweater or cardigan or what have you. But by doing this, I kind of feel like I know now I'm not tempted to go and knit some of these sweaters which have a lot of positive ease, as part of the design, because I know that something with not even that much positive ease is the most that I would be kind of willing to go for. I hope that logic makes sense. It makes sense to me, so that's kind of all that really matters, I guess. But and I really, really love the fabric. I've been wearing this so much. It's already got a couple of pills on the underarm, which is to be expected. I have honestly worn this for 3 or 4 days straight, and it's wool, so it doesn't smell or anything, which is fantastic. It is a 75% non-superwash merino, 25% cashmere blend. This is also from the Plucky Knitter. Sorry, I just banged the table there. This is all the yarn that I have left. I haven't weighed it. I think it's probably around 30 grams left, possibly a touch more. Anyway, I had 3 skeins of this yarn. This is the strawberry wine colourway. It comes out much too red. It's more towards Bordeaux than what you're seeing right now. That's just how it is. I know it's hard for cameras to pick up red. So here is the tag just to show you. This is the Oxford base. They have a base called Oxford 2.0, which is the same blend in terms of amounts of merino and cashmere, still non-superwash. This particular blend was just called Oxford and is discontinued. So this exact base doesn't exist anymore, but they have replaced it with Oxford 2.0. So there you go, it was a strawberry wine colourway. I think most of my skeins were close to 115 grams. So this is one thing that bugs me quite a bit about the Plucky Knitter yarn, is that they tell you how many yards are in your skein, but they don't tell you what the weight of the skein is. Now, I understand skeins are often slightly under or overweight, but they should tell you, in my opinion, what the put up is, meaning that yards, what would that correspond to? So if you had 100 grams, you would have 430 yards, or if you had 115 grams. And some places always put out skeins of a certain size, but Plucky Knitter, as far as I can tell, have skeins which are clearly meant to be 100 grams and clearly ones which are meant to be 115. Which it means you can't work out, what the yardage is per gram. And while I have never tried to design with their yarn, just being a designer, that's not great, because you don't know what the expected amount of yarn is for every gram that you use. And so it annoyed me a little bit, but I think that this was probably, they were meant to be 115 gram skeins for 430 yards. So I'm really happy to have this project off my needles, and this is the reason that I had no needles in my project bag from the Bonbon mitts, because I took those needles just to do the ribbing, so they were a smaller needle size. I think it was a 3mm needle, so I took those to do the ribbing on this, and indeed they're in this project bag, which I should really now empty out, and so I can put them back in the project bag for the Bonbon mitts and actually cast on my second one. So that is my first FO, and I have another FO. So in my Me Made project bag, I have, if it will let me in, finished the little socks that I was making for my daughter. So it's a little messy here, there are ends all over the place. I have woven in all the ends, I just haven't trimmed them yet. So, oh, and look, this one's actually inside out. Look at that. I'm really, really a wonderful podcaster. So anyway, these are a pair of socks which I made because I made myself a pair of socks, I think it was this year. I feel like it was earlier this year. There's a chance that it was before. It was last year. Dear oh dear. Which I called my Sunshine and Rainbows socks, which I made with this yarn. I still have so much of it left. This yarn from Yarn Inc. So Yarn Inc. is a Canadian, they are a Canadian independent yarn dyeing business. This was a club colourway of theirs from August 2016. At the time, I know she made it very clear that she did not repeat, sorry about that, she did not repeat any of her club colourways. I think since then she may have changed that policy, so I don't know if this is something that she may ever make again. If you could ask if you would like. It's really, really beautiful. It's the pale, pale, pale pastel blue, like for the sky, and then all the speckles of the rainbow. And it's really beautiful. And I still have so much of it left, so I don't know what I'm going to do now to find something else to make with them. Anyway, so I had made myself a pair of socks with that, where I had done my heels and toes with this yellow mini, which I got from Rosie's Moments of the UK. So I made these pair of socks for my daughter. So I have not blocked them or anything. And so I used the same mini that I had used for myself. I decided to use it for the toes. But when I'd done with both of them, I was like, I'm sure there's not enough there to do both heels, perhaps one heel. So I got her, I did afterthought heels here, so I got her to pick out another of my minis from Rosie's Moments in the UK, and she picked this one to be for the heels. So that is all finished now, all ends woven in. I did these cuff down. They do just about fit. I haven't blocked them, washed them yet, so I think that they will probably fit perfectly. I have done 44 stitches around, so I did a 1x1 rib. I don't know exactly how many rows or anything I did. I just knit for what seemed like a decent amount of time, a decent length, sorry. She didn't want them too high, so a decent length. I did the toe, and then I looked at her foot, we measured, and I decided where to put the afterthought heel in based on that, really. So these were fun to knit. It took me forever because I just kept using them as a project in the handbag, you know, going around and just doing a few rows. And also I knit these one at a time. I'd prefer to knit my socks or vanilla socks, adult vanilla socks, 2 at a time. With the kids one, there's so few, at least so far, there's so few stitches that knitting them 2 at a time just feels like all you are doing is rearranging needles and yarn. So for those I tend to, or so far I've only made baby and kids socks 1 at a time. Perhaps as her feet gets bigger and as the stitch count goes up, I will change that. Anyway, so yeah, these are, the blend is Superwash Merino Nylon 75-25. I think that the minis were 80-20, and they're a little bit plumper, actually, which I personally really like. I knit these on my 2.25mm Knit Pro Zings. 2.25mm is my go-to sock needle. I don't like smaller, and occasionally with some commercial sock yarns in particular, which are a bit plumper, I've used 2.5mm. So she's very much looking forward to wearing them, so I think today we will just cut off all those loose ends inside, and she can try those on. Okay, so those are my 2 real FOs, in that they are objects that I finished just in this last week, or how long is it? Nearly 2 weeks since I last podcast. But I did have another FO to show you. This is one from the archive, so to speak, and I'm really showing it to you now because this is actually something I knit for a friend when she asked for it, my friend Philippa, and I borrowed it from her because last weekend I was doing, 2 weekends ago now, yes, 2 weekends ago now, I did a Basics of Brioche knitting class at the Stitching Retreat here in Zurich. And so I wanted some more samples, and this was actually the photo of this particular object I had used for the sort of publicity for that class. And so I borrowed it back from my friend, which was fine because it's not cold enough to wear it at the moment. And I thought I would just show it to you now. It's one giant tube of 2-colour brioche. She wanted a giant oversized cowl. In retrospect, we just cast on and started knitting. Either I could have decreased towards the top, so it sort of would be more going around here, but actually in the end it ends up so big that you can wear it as it is, you know, all nice and big, almost sort of over the shoulders. And then I'm not going to put it on now because it's really hot, and you'll know why in a second when I tell you what the yarn blend is. But it's also long enough, it is enough, and it's got a lot of stretch that you can double it up and get a super, super cozy wrap around your neck. So this is knit out of another discontinued yarn, which is this one here from Plymouth Yarns. Plymouth Yarn Company, or Plymouth Yarn, I don't know what they call themselves. Here it just says Plymouth Yarn. And it is 50-50 alpaca and Highland wool. And it's I think it's listed as an Aran weight. It certainly looks like an Aran weight. It's really, really warm, and it's non-superwash as well. And I knit with this particular colourway. I have one ball left actually, is what I use basically is the main colour on this side of the fabric. You can see it's a colour changing yarn, and on the inside is another colourway I had of this yarn. So one side has this colour dominant, and the other side has this colour dominant. And I knit this out of 4 balls in total, so 2 balls of this colourway and 2 balls of the other colourway. I don't remember now how many stitches I cast on. I could count it if I cared. I did it with an Italian cast on, which gives this beautiful edge. Sorry, to show you not where the end was woven in there. Gives you this seamless edge to your work. And I also used I also used an Italian bind off. Here is exactly where the colour was changing, so it's more apparent exactly where the bind off is, which is okay with me. I don't mind. That's just how it was with that particular yarn. And that's a sewn bind off, the Italian bind off. It's my preferred cast on and bind off for tubular, a tubular bind off, so for 1x1 ribbing. Especially, so this is a lovely huge cuddle of alpaca. So I will be giving that back to my friend very, very soon. I'm sorry if you can hear construction noise outside. Unfortunately, they always seem to be doing something around not that far from where I live. They finished building the building which I used to complain about in my previous episodes, just across the road from us, but now they're digging up the next road down. There's not much I can do. I have the windows closed, and I can't do more than that. Okay, so that is it for whips and FOs. Now I wanted to just do a tiny bit of admin, and then I have a couple of acquisitions. So the first thing I wanted to say in admin is that I did reach 1,000 subscribers on Instagram, as I had mentioned I thought I was about to on the last podcast. So I hope that any of you that were interested in entering the giveaway that I said I would be doing for that did go over and enter that. I'm saying it sort of in the past tense because by the time this video is up, there'll be less than 1 day until when I finish the giveaway. So the giveaway is going to finish on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday the 11th or Wednesday the 11th of October? Some point in the middle of my day, so around 12 o'clock noon in Central European time. But I did just want to show you briefly because it was one of the things in here is one of the acquisitions I made at the stitching retreat. So there was Annika from With a Button. See, With a Button here. She has little, handmade project bags which she sells, and I picked up this beautiful one specifically for the Instagram giveaway because I just thought it was beautiful. You've got these this beautiful, nice thick woven fabric down here. This stunning button. She puts a button on all of her project bags that she makes. And I also just love this lining. So the giveaway is this bag, which is a perfect, very good sock size. I mean, bigger than you would need for socks. Also probably good for a 1 skein shawl. And I'm also giving away this skein. Sorry that I bashed there. This skein of loveliness from Knitting in France. This is 1 skein of her cash sock. That is an 80-10-10, I think, yes. 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, high twist yarn. You can probably see there. It's got a really nice twist to it. And it's got this cream base with these 3 sections of colour in there. So you can see them all. And this exact skein exact skein of yarn. No, this exact yarn, I had 2 skeins. And one skein is exactly what I used to make my Antonia shawl, which is in need of a block, but I've shown you before. But just so you can see the beautiful way, sorry, I'm show it this way, that this knits up. This is my Antonia shawl design, which is a lovely shawl design which uses up 1 skein of fingering weight sock yarn, especially that nice beautiful sock skein of sock yarn that you bought which you don't want to put on your feet, or you've got enough socks, you're not in the mood to knit socks and you wanted a shawl. This was a fun, engaging but easy project to use to knit that up. And within the giveaway, so you're going to get this skein in this bag, which I just thought they just match so perfectly, don't they? And 2 coupon codes for my patterns from Ravelry, so you can choose whichever of those you want from my Ravelry store. And I'll throw in some other goodies. As I always say, packages that are sent from Switzerland do have to include chocolate. So that's just a warning there. So anyway, I will also be having a giveaway coming up soon on this channel, so watch out for that. And other admin is that both my Artemis shawl and Stracciatella shawls are available in my Ravelry store now, and I'm going to be hosting KALs. So the KAL for the Artemis shawl kicks off today, the 10th of October, and I have the KAL for the Stracciatella shawl. I was considering actually to not have too many different things going on, to have one thread for those 2 shawls, so the Artemis / Stracciatella shawl KAL, and in that case, you know, every FO that you produced would be a valid entry in the FO thread for that KAL. And as I've always said, if you're using one of the kits which are made from the yarn dyes, so in the case of the Artemis shawl, it was the Treliz yarn, you would get 2 entries if you knit your Artemis shawl out of Treliz yarn, and if you knit the Stracciatella shawl out of Nora George yarn, then you would get 2 entries for that. So I'm considering doing that. I would keep chatter threads separate, I think, because those can be useful for people talking particularly about those shawls, but I might have one FO thread. I would still draw 2 prices, don't worry, but I was considering doing that. Maybe it doesn't make sense because you obviously want a prize for someone who did the Stracciatella and there's a prize for the Artemis, but I would still probably do it that way. You know, I would pull out a prize number and check that, and the first person who came out who was an Artemis knitter would get that prize, and also for the Stracciatella shawl. So I was just thinking of that because I was thinking of also starting a KAL, which has nothing to do with my designs, because that would be fun, because that's what I'd like us to be doing. And so I wanted to start a garment KAL. I know there's a lot of garment KALs out there, but hey, that means you can enter whatever unit for this into those as well, which I just think is more fun. Shauna from the Shauna Knits podcast mentioned maybe we do a KAL for the Madewell cardigan. The Madewell cardigan, just in case you don't know, is this lovely fingering weight cardigan from Herky Locatelli, and I am very much intending to knit that garment at some point, but right now I just finished this fingering weight sweater and I don't think I'm going to be able to churn out a fingering weight garment anytime soon. So what I thought of is that we can do a garment KAL, and it can be called the garment Firsts KAL. So if you've never knit a garment before, you can enter a garment that you knit. Or if you have knit a garment before, you're knitting something you have never knit. So you've never knit a cable garment before, or you've never knit a seamed garment before, or never knit a garment with lots of lace in, or, you know, I mean, I think it's easy to do. It's just saying, don't take a pattern you've already knit or a particular style you've already knit. So if you've always knit top-down raglan sweaters, don't knit a top-down raglan sweater, knit something else. So I would be knitting along with you with my Recoleta cardigan, because I've never knit an Aran weight cardigan. I've never knit a cardigan with lace in it. You know, not all certain. No, I've never knit a cardigan with more than just eyelet borders on. So that's got plenty of firsts in it for me. So that's the KAL which I'm going to be running. So I'm going to open that up, I think, almost straight away. So I'm going to open up a chatter thread, and I thought it can run till the end of the year, so until December 31st. So any of you who are already knitting a garment, I would say one of those sort of usual rules. If you've got a whip, then I don't want to say you can't enter your WIP, provided it qualifies that it's something that you've never done before. But I'm going to say, you know, this is a garment cowl. It needs to be not more than 25% knit already. So please bear in mind those rules. I will start a chatter thread, and at some point in the future I will put an FO thread up. So it's going to be the garment Firsts KAL. Alright, so that's all the admin. And if I have any time left, I think I just about, yes, I have a bit of time left to show you my acquisitions. So one you've already seen is the project bag that I bought from With a Button for the Instagram giveaway, because it just seemed appropriate. It was something that comes from where I am, from where I'm from in Zurich, and it was beautiful, and it had sheep on it. So, but I also bought from her a project bag for myself, and it's beautiful. And it's very full because it's holding the brioche shawl. And it does fit though, it fits nicely, and it will fit until it's finished, because this has got all the yarn that I need to finish it and the project in there. And something else hard at the bottom. I don't know what that is. Okay. Aren't these foxes beautiful? It's just a really, really lovely, lovely bag, and perfectly, I don't know, it feels very autumnal, obviously. It's got these beautiful ribbons, silky ribbons. It's a lovely, solid, it's a drawstring bag, but given that this is sort of, you know, tight woven fabric here at the bottom, it's not quilting cotton, it's quite robust, and inside it's got this beautiful seersucker. I really, really love seersucker material, always have done, and so I had to get that one. And all her projects have a button on. This one has a little red button on this little red fox down here. So as I asked Annika, she doesn't sell her project bags yet, so she was selling them here at the stitching retreat. She had a really good selection, but she doesn't have anything set up at the moment. But she is With a Button on Instagram, and I will put her information down below. And I don't know if that's something she's interested in, but certainly she said she had a lot more fabric at home, and for those people who are interested, she would also, you know, send you pictures of her fabric and make you up project bags. So I will put the information down below in case you are interested. Also at the retreat, there were a couple of other sellers there, and I picked up, sorry for the crinkling, I picked up this loveliness. I'm positive it's not going to get the colour right. It's showing that way, way too blue. Wow, isn't that funny? So this is teal. This is a proper teal. It's not as blue as that. It's more green than that. Don't know how I can get you. That's getting closer, but it's not even remote. See, if I hold it far away. No, this is really not the right colour. At some point, I do want to take a picture of this. I haven't stuck it on Instagram yet, and so hopefully I'll be able to get a good picture of it and put it up online. But this is my first ever Malabrigo Rios, which is their superwash merino worsted weight yarn. It is in the teal feather colourway, and this one, so it's 100 grams, 210 yards. So I have 4 skeins. I bought this, oh, one of them's unwinding. I bought this with specific, it's not very specific. I would probably design something with this, to be honest, just because I know I want a worsted weight shawl with it, and I think that I was looking for some patterns, and there was none that were just quite what I wanted. So I have had a few ideas for worsted weight shawls recently, but this one hasn't fully crystallized yet exactly all of the elements, but I really wanted something that was all one color. I mean, tonal is fine, but you know, not multicolored and not with speckled or very variegated yarns. I don't know, I've just been really craving something like this, and this is probably one of my all-time favorite colors. It's teal, so I picked up 4 skeins of that. Should I change my mind, it would be enough probably to make myself a sweater. There are almost 800, there are more than 800 yards there, so nearly 800 meters. So for me, a fitted type sweater, it could also be enough. But anyway, I'm really, really hoping that what I was thinking of will work nicely with it for a big, cozy worsted weight shawl. And I have one other thing to show you, and this is something that I received. It's not an acquisition. It's not an acquisition that I didn't pay for it. I won a giveaway. I've won, I think, a couple of other giveaways ever since I started, knew that giveaways existed. This one just felt really special. So any of you, I feel like all of you must know Helen Stewart of the Curious Handmade podcast and Curious Handmade Designs. Obviously, she has beautiful, beautiful designs. She is the designer behind the Shawls Society. If you've ever heard of that, haven't heard of her. She has an audio podcast. She occasionally records some videos to supplement, but she does a weekly audio podcast, which you can find on iTunes, which is Curious Handmade Podcast. And throughout the summer, she had something called Camp Curious, where she was talking through each week elements of her design process. And there was like a little prompt or challenge each week that you were meant to go back and update your post in her Camp Curious thread for the in the Ravelry group, sorry. And I think it was like colour and texture, so your favourite colour, your favourite stitch pattern, your favourite items that you've knitted, things that inspire you, your favourite pictures of things that you've knit and what have you. Anyway, so I took part in that, and I won one of the prizes, and I can't believe it. So I won a beautiful project bag, which comes from Maria Elena Bliss. Look at that. So it's a patchwork project bag. So let me just show you her tag there. Maria Elena Bliss Handmade, which I believe she's in the US. I didn't double check that. It's got this lovely little ribbon here with this wooden sheep on, which you could also attach other things to. It has this leather handle to hold onto it. It's a very sturdy drawstring. This is sort of, it's definitely interfaced, if not very lightly quilted. There are little pockets inside. So there is a pocket here which is quite wide, and then there is also a narrow pocket like for an extra pair of needles. Currently my Recoleta cardigan is in there because I only have 2 skeins on the go at the moment. Anyway, it's really, really beautiful. Her work is amazing. It has definitely a handcrafted look and feel to it, but on a really, really, really professional level. So that was amazing. And I also got this skein of skein yarn. So skein yarn comes from Australia, and this is their Australis sock, which is a 4-ply 100% Australian merino yarn. It's really plump. You can see there, it's really, really squishy. This particular one is called Sterling. The colourway is a beautiful tonal grey, on the lighter side, but it's not only light, but I'm really happy about that because the only skeins I currently have of just grey. I have one of basically an undyed yak silk merino single ply, which is lovely. That's undyed, and then the only dyed skein of grey I have is much, much darker than this. So it's really, really beautiful and incredibly, incredibly soft. I believe it's superwash. It doesn't say superwash, but it says gentle machine wash, so I'm guessing it's superwash. Yeah. Oh, and she also threw in, so we have a little card from her, and there was a pin, and I dropped it at the bottom of the bag because I didn't want to lose it, and I thought if I take it out of the bag, I'll lose it. So also was a enamel pin from the Shawls Society from Curious Handmade. So there you go. So you can see the logo of Helen's design brand and design company there. So I was utterly blown away and really, really grateful. So thank you, Helen, for a really beautiful gift. Prize is the correct word. All right. So this is everything that I wanted to cover today. I hope that I have found you all well. I didn't, of course, say at the beginning, thank you for coming back and watching me. If you do keep coming back and watching me and haven't subscribed, please do so. It's nice to know that people want to come back each week. And if you're new and this is the first time you're checking me out, if you liked it, by all means, click subscribe. And all the links, again, for where to find me will be down below if you want to get involved in the Ravelry group and so on and so forth. Everything will be down below. Okay, so So that is everything for this week. I hope that you are enjoying October, which is the month we are now in. September absolutely disappeared in the blink of an eye for me. So I hope that you're all all feeling relaxed and enjoying your autumn. And I will see you again as soon as I can. Bye!